Bitcoin will be over 250,000 by the end of this year or next year.
What's going to drive that, do you think?
What'll happen is that the tariff stuff will be a dud, and that people will realize that the world is willing to negotiate, and it's really just U.S. versus China.
Founder of Cardano and crypto expert Charles Hoskinson speaks about the path of crypto reaching mainstream adoption and the use cases of crypto, and the use percentage of people that use crypto in different countries all over the world, and how this will have a compounding effect over time and will lead to mainstream adoption and everyday use. He says eventually, everyone will get tired of fees and permission systems, and over time, the general public will choose to self-custody their own crypto and become their own bank, cutting out the middleman and gaining control of their own financial future. In his boldest prediction yet, he says that Bitcoin will reach 250K by the end of 2025. That's a face-melting bull run by the end of the year. Let's listen in as Charles Hoskinson gives his thoughts on the crypto market. And if you are invested in crypto or thinking of investing in crypto, subscribe to the channel so we can help you navigate through your crypto journey.
Charles, I want to move the conversation on to a bit about what's happening in the world. As we're recording this, I asked you about a president earlier. There's a president dominating conversation globally right now, and that is President Donald Trump in the US and the tariffs he's imposed on 180 countries around the world as well. That's what's dominating markets right now, whether it's equity markets or whether it's the crypto markets as well. What is the view from the crypto industry at the moment as it pertains to what the tariffs and the state of world trade and the global economy is to your industry?
There's like that meme where the guys are standing there on the gallows and they have the rope around their neck, and he's like, first time, huh?
Yeah.
When I first started crypto, Bitcoin was under $1. I want you to go from $1 to $30, down to $4, up to $256, down to $80, up to $1,200, down to $250, up to $20,000, down to $4,000, to $68,000, down to $25, all the way up to $100. I've watched it go up and down, up and down, up and down. And, you know, the macro, it changes. We've lived through Obama. We've lived through Trump 1. We lived through Biden. Now we're in Trump 2.
Yeah.
Presidents change, macro changes. Really, the question is, every generation, are we gaining users? Are we gaining liquidity? And are we gaining utility as a system? And so the thing is, when I first started, we had less than 1 million people in crypto. In fact, it was less than 100,000 people in crypto globally. Now we have 550 million people. You look at Argentina, there's a $700 billion economy. 1 out of every $7 in their economy is in crypto. There's $100 billion in crypto there. Think about that. Vietnam, 32% of the economy is crypto. 32% of people hold crypto there. In Nigeria, it's 25%. So you have nation states adopting it. You have massive amounts of wealth that's entered the space. So while you have tariffs, that's an ephemeral concern. There's going to be a trade war for a little bit. What ends up happening is crypto benefits in the long term, because geopolitically what's happening is we're moving from a rules-based international order to a great powers conflict. Now we're kind of young, so we spent our entire adult lives under a rules-based international order, but our parents and grandparents, they lived under a great powers conflict. It was the United States and the Soviet Union going at it. So it didn't matter what the trade deal was, it didn't matter what the rule law was. If the Soviet Union wanted to do something or US wanted to do something, they just do it. And now we go back to great powers conflict. If Russia wants to invade Ukraine, it invades Ukraine. If China wants to invade Taiwan, it's going to do that. So treaties don't really work so well, and global business doesn't really work so well there. So your only option for globalization is crypto. If you want to do business with countries the United States doesn't like, or Russia doesn't like, or China doesn't like, in a global commons, you can no longer do that through treaty organizations or legacy banks or things. You can only do that through crypto. So when you take that, plus the new laws that are being passed, like the market structure bill and the stablecoin bill in the United States, and where MiCA is solidifying, what's going to end up happening is the big guys, the Magnificent Seven, are going to come into crypto, and that's going to bring 3 billion users into crypto. You're going to have a cryptocurrency wallet in your Android phone. You're going to have a cryptocurrency wallet in your iPhone. You're going to have a cryptocurrency wallet in Windows, and they're going to be using stablecoins. It's not because Papa Satya over at Microsoft is like, boy, I love crypto. It's he hates paying fees. If you're Microsoft, you got people in 150 countries, and you hate some local bank in Bangladesh or Pakistan or someplace charges you 5% here or 10% here. You want to get rid of that whole thing. So why not pay them in stable coins, Windows to Windows, and you're your own bank. Plus, if they're issuing that token, they could wake up just like Tether does and get $20-30 billion a year in yield from treasury bills. So Microsoft wants to be in that market. And Facebook tried and they got regulated out of it. They'll come back. What's the stablecoin bill and the other thing? So when you look at the macro and you widen the aperture, we are a dominant force in a great powers conflict, and we're a dominant force with the Magnificent Seven coming on board. And also the real world asset revolution is going to be huge. That's $10 trillion that's going to be entering the cryptocurrency
So you
space.
think the stablecoin bill, which is something that's currently going through the legislative process in the US, could unlock a lot of value and particularly bring in Mag 7 to buy stablecoin and transact in stablecoin?
Or even issue their own, because all they have to do is buy a bank.
Yeah.
And if you're $1 trillion company, that's an easy proposition,
Yeah.
right? They can set up Speedy Bank in Wyoming or something like that.
And as you said, Facebook did try with Libra.
Yeah, and so they want to do this because it makes so much sense, and they want to turn every messenger app into a payment system because it also reduces the friction in selling products. Microtransactions, if you're Xbox Live or something like that, why do you have points? Why not just tap a button, you can give a tip, or a streaming platform like YouTube? Wouldn't it be nice that you can give tips to a YouTube streamer and 20% of them go to YouTube? They want that. They want it bad. X is going to do the same thing. They're getting all the requisite licenses. So hundreds of millions will be brought in, if not billions, through that. And that stablecoin bill is going to get done in 2 to 3 months. So we're moving real fast.
Just to get back to kind of where we currently are, you don't think we're heading towards another crypto winter at all?
No. I think Bitcoin will be over 250,000 by the end of this year or next year.
What's going to drive that, do you think?
What'll happen is that the tariff stuff will be a dud, and that people will realize that the world is willing to negotiate. And it's really just U.S. versus China, and a lot of people will side with us, some people will side with China. The markets will stabilize a little bit, and they'll get used to the new normal, and then the Fed will lower interest rates, and then you'll have a lot of fast, cheap money, and then it'll pour into crypto because it'll get reignited by the market structure bill and the Magnificent Seven entering in the stablecoin bill. So it'll stall for probably the next 3 to 5 months, and then you'll have a huge wave of speculative interest come probably August or September into the markets, and that'll carry through for probably another 6 to 12 months.
But do you think the Fed has room to move if these tariffs cause higher inflation in the U.S.?
Well, of course they can. They can do whatever they want to do. It's the Fed, right? And also, it's not intrinsically clear how inflationary the tariffs will be. There was an MIT report that came out, I think it was from the first Trump administration, where they looked at the 2018 tariffs. And even though there was a 10%, 25%, depending on the nature of the tariff, the real inflation was only about 0.7%. So it's a very complex thing when you look at tariffs and prices and all these things, because people can switch inputs, people can make side trade deals, people can domestically manufacture. There's also stickiness in inventory, so people may have stockpiles of things that they run down for a little bit. It's a game of chicken that he's basically playing, and a lot of people are going to renegotiate. And I think they'll get to a point where they're comfortable with the new normal. There will be some price increase, but the question is, is that going to be much more than what we've been encountering with inflation already? I mean, the real inflation rate has been probably 5 to 7%, when you really think about it, especially if you look at indexes like Truflation over the way that we currently do it with the legacy systems, with legacy metrics. Because, things like oil are important. Beef is important. Maybe we should price that in with inflation. So it's a nuanced thing. And what the media likes to do is they like to say, the sky is falling and everything is destroyed and the whole time we're going into a depression and it's Herbert Hoover and all this other stuff. It's like, wait, Microsoft's going to disappear and Facebook's going to disappear and all these innovations in AI are just going to go away and all the humanoid robots are going to go away and people are going to stop buying our weapons and these types of things. No, it's a big, diverse, extremely intricate global economy. And just because tariffs are coming, people aren't going to stop consuming things and people aren't going to stop buying things.
Charles, what's the view in the industry at the moment on President Trump's, first few months in office? He obviously campaigned on a very pro-crypto agenda. He embraced the industry, promised a lot of stuff. We've had the crypto strategic reserve come out, and there was a sense of underwhelm to some extent, though there's still a lot of positivity around the fact that, the US has done this thing anyway. And other nations could follow here. But I just would love your view on how you might assess the first few months of the president as it pertains to your industry.
Oh, my Lord.
Nothing else.
my Lord. So we went from Joe Biden with Scary Gary literally suing every single exchange, living in a Kafkaesque anti-clarity world, to a president who said he's going to pardon Ross Ulbricht. He did it. To a president who said he was going to create a strategic reserve. He did it. To a president who said he's going to create a bicameral working group and a crypto czar to pass cryptocurrency legislation. It's going to be done this year. Every lawsuit has been unwound that's of substance. The Coinbase lawsuit, the XRP lawsuit, the Kraken lawsuit, the OKX is settled. The industry's healing. and it was horrible under the Biden administration. So I appreciate that some people are underwhelmed. I think that comes from sour grapes because they expected a bull run. But it's not going to happen right now. There's too much stuff going on. There's too much uncertainty going on. There's still a war in Ukraine. There's still a war in the Middle East. There's a lot of fear over trade. There's great powers conflict. Crypto's not immune to the macro, and we have to get through all of that macro, and we have to kind of figure that stuff out. So after we get about 6 months in, 12 months in, we'll start getting some more stability. We'll start getting some more regularity in things. And then at that juncture, I think then we can start taking advantage of the legislation and the structural stuff. As for the U.S. Reserve, going from we're going to divest 212,000 Bitcoin and the government's going after crypto to the government's now going to hold it and we're going to try to find a legislative framework to buy it over the next 3 to 5 years, that's a massive leap forward. And so I don't know what more people want out of this. It's as good as it gets.
The crypto space is evolving rapidly and gaining more new users at a faster pace than the internet. By year 10, the internet had over 25 million users globally, which is a massive number. But crypto, by year 10, had amassed over 400 million users. It's clear, crypto is here to stay, and it's one of the fastest growing technologies in the history of the world. And although the crypto space has historically been dominated by retail investors, now institutional investors and nation states are taking their piece of the pie, investing billions year after year. What started as an email list and a white paper has grown to a finance and tech juggernaut that is rivaling TradFi and is shaking the global asset space. Decentralization and digital ownership will be the norm and expected by every average end user of networks in the future. Crypto technologies could also change the way we organize public and private systems. It could even change the way corporations operate currently as centralized entities and change them into DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, which would centralize and democratize decision-making processes in corporations and give members with governance tokens the right to participate in voting instead of the way it's done now by centralized hierarchy of management made up of directors and shareholders and CEOs, making the decision-making process more of a top-down function instead of a decentralized function, which may slow down innovation and prevent growth. Crypto changes the outlook of global trade, especially for sanctioned countries. It changes the accessibility of the US dollar for billions of people who have no access to traditional banking across the globe. New stablecoin bills in America will allow big tech to incorporate crypto into their products, which will add to its mainstream adoption and possibly onboard millions of new users. With the switch of government stance on crypto with the Trump administration, the future of crypto looks bright. And this is why Charles Hoskinson believes that Bitcoin will hit 250K by the end of 2025. Let's listen in as Charles Hoskins continues explaining his outlook of the future of the crypto space.
But you always have to be thinking, like, what's the next major problem to solve? And why are you here? At the end of the day, I've never lost sight of the fact that the purpose of cryptocurrencies is to give the world economic, political, and social systems that can't be evil by their design. I want every person to be their own bank. I want every person to own their own money. I want every person to be in charge of their own identity. I want people to actually know that when they have something, there's real value there. There's sound money there. And it didn't matter if when I was doing my TED Talk back in the day or, when Satoshi launched Bitcoin or whatever to where we're at today, that is an immutable truth that carries through. If you don't have that intention, you won't survive in crypto because it's too hard. There's too many ups and downs. There's too much volatility. All the brutal regulation, all these things. There's the next flavor of the week. Solana was hot shit, and then Cardano was hot shit, and then Solana became hot shit again. Now you got SWI, and that's the hot shit. Aptos is the hot shit. Maybe it'll be the next MacGuffin. Like everybody's better, faster, and cheaper. And what keeps Cardano relevant, what keeps Bitcoin relevant, is the principles. And that's what matters the most. And as long as people believe in it, it'll continue to grow and thrive, and people are willing to put in the time. Because all this stuff requires a lot of effort. You have to read documents. You have to educate yourself. You have to invent new technology. You have to convince people. You have to, go sit at the coffee shop next to somebody and say crypto matters. And it can't be because you made a 5X on something. That's not sustainable. Then that's not practical. It has to be because that person says, boy, I'm really angry about this thing in society, like rent discrimination or high fees of the banks, or they just told me, like I saw a video the other day, somebody in the UK, they want to buy a 2,500 pound motorbike and they're on the phone with the bank and they're trying to withdraw cash to do it and the bank won't let them do it. I don't want to live in a world where I have all this money and then I have to argue with the bank over whether I'm allowed to spend my own money or not. My God, it just makes so much sense to go to crypto where I control that, not a bank. Or like when COVID happened and all the people got deplatformed when they said, hey, COVID was made in a lab, and then Facebook would ban their account or something like that. I don't want to live in a lab that some person I've never met is the arbiter of truth and gets to decide what I'm allowed to say or do. So that's the principles that really matter. And crypto is the only option to guarantee that. Because politicians will always let you down. Nations will always let you down. Big corporations will always screw you in the event, but crypto never will. It's always going to be your friend.
In Charles Hoskinson's view, cryptocurrency was made to offer decentralized systems to the world to support innovation and ownership of value and stop corruption and what he would describe as evil. He believes that people should be in control of their own digital properties, and crypto is a hedge against inflation, a hedge against corruption, and more importantly, a hedge against censorship. It is a path to protecting all the values and freedoms that are special to people all over the world. But what do you think? Thanks for watching. If this video was helpful, please subscribe. And if you have anything to add to the conversation, comment down below.